So speaking of which, that number one seed, let's talk about the biggest contender against them for the number one seed, and a team that, again, like the Saints, just looks like they have zero weaknesses in the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. So offensively, not much needs to be said. It's Patrick Mahomes with Andy Reid, and they've been spectacular for every season he's been there. I don't know if you've heard this stat, but the two leading receivers in the league are Tyreek Hill as number one. Can you guess who number two is?
Travis Kelce.
Yeah. So that's ridiculous in its own right. Similar to last year, how the Buccaneers had Evans and Godwin. They were both top 5 in yards, I believe, it's just crazy seeing that happen. And those two are both very special talents. Even the Buccaneers defense, which is pretty good, although it is very inconsistent, they were getting absolutely torched by Tyreek Hill. He was on pace at the end of the first quarter for 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. That is unheard of. So that is really good for them. But one thing that I do want to highlight, which is my weakness, is their O-line against the Buccaneers did not look good. Mahomes was getting hit almost every play. Schwartz was out, and I believe Mike Remmers he's either the left or right tackle, but he was getting just used and abused out there.
Yeah, let's be honest. Schwartz is maybe the best right tackle in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So losing him is a big loss, and they don't know if he's going to come back. He's got a back injury, and backs are very iffy. So we'll see if he comes back.
Yeah, and speaking of Mike Remmers, I don't know if you remember him, but the
Carolina
2015 Super Bowl, he was the guy
Miller abused him,
attempting to block Von Miller, who ended up getting Super Bowl MVP. So that's who he is, for those who don't know. But yeah, I'm curious, what are your opinions, maybe a strength or weakness that the team has?
Yeah, they're loaded across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I agree with the offensive line. I was actually going to bring that up because my thinking was at first when Schwartz comes back, this is going to improve. But they're not sure if Schwartz is going to come back. So obviously, if Schwartz comes back, this is going to improve a lot. But without Schwartz, we'll see. Regarding the roster, right? Everybody, I think sometimes it's kind of overstated how good Mahomes is in comparison. Like, their roster is stacked. It is stacked on offense and defense. They have talent in every single position. It's not to take away anything from Mahomes. He's still a stud. But I think there's a lot of guys on that roster that are a little unheralded. And I think Steve Spagnuolo has been kind of a godsend for them. He does so many creative things defensively, and it really helps them win a lot of games. For me, the one weakness I see is they seem to be struggling to rush the passer. They seem to be relying too much on – and Spagnuolo is great, right, because he can just come up with a bunch of different blitzes. They're the number one percentage team in terms of running cover zero, which is basically all-out pressure, no safeties in the middle of the field, man across the board. So they're the number one team in doing that. But they need more, right? They're paying Chris Jones so much money, Frank Clark so much money. Those are two premier players at their position. They need more from their pass rush. They need a lot more from their pass rush, to be honest. I think that's the only thing I would say, but I think that's a very fixable issue. My other thing with them is the only thing that's going to hold them back to me this year is complacency. That's the only way that I think they're going to be stopped. Where if they come off a little bit fat and happy because they just dominated the regular season, they won the Super Bowl, they dominated the playoffs last year, kind of a Packers to 2011 syndrome, where you come out and the 15-1 Packers, they're dropping everything against the Giants, who are this hot, angry road team that's rallying together, that fought to make it into the playoffs and all of that. So I think that's the only thing that's going to hold them back. They are coached by Andy Reid, though, who's as good as it gets, and he's always going to be laser focused at the task at hand. So we'll see. But to me, they're the most complete team in the NFL, and I'm very interested to see how teams play them in the playoffs.
Yeah, and with that too, if they can't get the first seed, they're going to have to play an extra playoff game, something they didn't have to do last year, and it really is a war of attrition in the NFL, and with all the COVID guidelines and rules, you never know who's going to be out for a team. So that extra game could be the deciding factor in who ends up being the champion.
Right. They haven't had much of the COVID issues that other teams have had. So good on them for being responsible. But, we don't know when it's going to kick in because some of these teams, like I know the Niners have been extremely responsible, but they still had players go. Same with the Packers. So we'll see. The other thing I did want to mention real quick, two things is one, I think that the extra playoff game. So if you remember last year, it took that Ryan Fitzpatrick drive against the Patriots late to make the Patriots get the 3 seed and the Chiefs to get the 2 seed.
Devontae
I don't know if
Parker.
they'll have that type of fortuitous luck this year because luck is very uneven in the NFL. And then the other thing is that with the Chiefs, they haven't actually played a road playoff game in the Mahomes era. I'm not saying they can't win on the road, but Arrowhead's a fantastic
One of the
home
best.
field advantage.
Top
So
five.
I'm very. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's probably a top 5 place to play for home field advantage. I mean that, and it doesn't get talked about enough, like Foxborough or CenturyLink did for the Seahawks.
New
So
Orleans.
yeah, New Orleans too. So, but yeah, go on.
Yeah. So I'm if they don't get that 1 seed and they have to play at Pittsburgh, I'm confident they could win that game. But it's a new thing, right? Because winning a road playoff game is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And so I'm really excited to see how that would go down. I'm hoping we could see it that way because Patrick Mahomes and their team is so good. Like, you would love to see them have a little more adversity and have to battle through it. And if they come out ultimately victorious, they do.